It is 7:15 in the evening from the Ligo Cabana in tropical North Queensland. It is just 9:15 in Manchester, England. And this is the only place in the world where a league launches a new streaming service that kills off half its audience. And where the biggest New Year's resolution was waving goodbye to the West Tigers board. Yes, this is the Sideline Chat podcast, the one-stop shop for rugby league. Along with Mark, I am so remote, Henry, I am Connor Marcellus, and tonight we are doing a massive 3-part special for the 2024 Betfred Super League. Things just got mad at the back end of Season 3. New studio set, new way of approaching things, but it's still the same old formula we will endeavour to deliver across the 2024 calendar year. Let's get into it with part 1 of our 2024 Super League series, starting off once again with the Castleford Tigers and Mark. Oh boy, good thing I forgot how bad Castleford were at the back end of the year.
Yeah, they weren't exactly the best as of the back end of 2023. I was nearly going to say 2024 for a second. Yeah, but the back end of 2023, they were not well whatsoever. And it really did show, one, with the scoreline, and two, where they end up finishing up on the overall table.
We were looking at a side going into 2023 that had finished 7th in the last 2 years. Lee Radford was staring down the barrel of potentially having a third year of Cas missing the playoffs, but I didn't see it happening this bad at all. We are talking a 4-23 result from 27 rounds of competition. That is bad.
And the team that they had on paper, well, it looked like a team that would crack the top 6 and play in the playoffs. But no. It's far from it, put it that way.
I mean, I'm looking back at all these results that they had suffered, and some of the worst results. And they went, and all the head coaches they went through too. It's like it's hard to get a read on them, considering every so often they would turf a head coach out. I mean, like Paulie Radford, he only lasted 3 weeks, and he was gone after he got nilled by the Wigan Warriors. Andy Last comes in, and he goes all the way up until literally the end of August. And then he gets cast aside for former London Broncos boss, Danny Ward. And he is able, in a 5-game stint, 1 win that saves Castleford from relegation.
Yeah, because the rate that they were going, I seriously thought that Castleford were going to get relegated. And we joked a bit about Wakefield of how poor they were.
Which they
but
were.
I'm surprised that Castleford, yeah. But seriously, Castleford weren't not much better, and I'm very, very surprised that they did not get relegated. It's just because of the amount of wins that there was just 1 game.
Considering the amount of times they get nil, they got nil by Wigan in round 3, they got nil by Warrington in round 6. So in the space of a month and a half, they get nilled twice. They get nilled by St Helens in round 17. Huddersfield nilled them in round 21. And then they concede in the final 2 regular season games against Wigan and Leeds a combined margin of 94-6. And it gets worse because they lost to Warrington 66-12 on top of that before downing Hull 29-12 at the Jungle in Danny Ward's only win from 5 games.
Yeah.
It was absolutely atrocious for a side. I mean, and you look at the side they had on paper, at least, is that had a lot of disruption to it. Like, there was no Danny Richardson, Gareth Widdop, Jacob Miller, Niall Levels were all in and out of the side completely. And then there was just a long list of low knees they brought in. Some of them are now regulars in the side or have got on very handsomely rewarded for their effort. It's at the back end. But like Liam Horn, Jordan Johnston, Blake Austin, Riley Dean, and Alex Foster were all mid-season signings. Like 4 of them all that got it right. And then they bring in Billy Sarikis, Charbel Tassapale, amongst others. And it's like, this side is absolutely rudderless.
As like the inconsistencies like with the coaching and like you players, like you were saying with Widdop and all that, like, there was just like injuries and that, like, to key players that just, couldn't keep on going.
The biggest indictment I think you have is it's with the consistency of the spine. Jacob Miller is there as a constant throughout the whole part. Gareth Widdop misses a few weeks here and there. Niall Evalds was basically gone after round 12. He doesn't feature again. You got Mahe Fanua that featured on and off throughout the course of the year and then left for Doncaster. Jake Mamo, first 2 weeks, never seen again. And you look as the season wore on for the Tigers and the losses kept piling up. And then you look to the back end of the season. The 17 that started the year don't feature again at the back end of the year. The only ones that really featured at the back end, and this is really indicting, Jordan Turner, Jacob Miller, Liam Watts, Nathan Massey, Kenny Edwards, Alex Mellor, George Lawler, Jack Broadbent, Siwa Matangi, Muz Mustafa, Greg Eden, Jason Gary, Sam Hall, Bradley Martin, Liam Horn, Blake Austin, and Fletcher Rooney, who I think was on debut, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe you are correct in saying that.
How bad do you have to get where you churn through all those players, not just those in your top squad, but then all the loanees you bring in as well, on top of having 3 different head coaches throughout various stages?
Yeah. Put it this way, it was a season to get...
different players they ended up using. 47. Unacceptable.
That's probably the most in the Super League.
Well, definitely of that class.
In here.
Now, the best player was a very dark year for Castleford, but I definitely think at the end of it all, Joe Westerman was somewhat of a shining light in that very good back row with Kenny Edwards and Alex Mellor they did have. In 22 appearances, he only managed 1 try and 6 try assists, but ran for 2,220 running meters. He had 62 tackle breaks. He broke the line twice and contributed 36 offloads. So it's no longer with figures like that Newcastle head coach Craig Lingard has made him a co-captain alongside Paul McShane.
Well, yeah, but if Westerman had those stats, and God knows what the other players are like seriously. I mean, Westerman, don't get me wrong, he's a good player, but if that's who, I don't know what you think, but if that's who you think is, God knows what the other stats added up to. But again, opinions are opinions. But I have to agree, Westerman did well and thoroughly deserved the co-captaincy for 2024.
Now, Castleford have really cleaned out the roster after a very, very bad 2023 campaign, in contrast to the 21-22 campaigns. As you would expect, all the players out on loan that they had ended up returning. So Billy Siricus ended up probably returning to Canterbury at some point. I don't know. I haven't heard anything on that. Blake Austin returned to the Leeds Rhinos, and then he left them anyway, so really no different. Jordan Johnston and Alex Foster both returned to the Championship with the Witness Vikings and the now League One Newcastle Thunder, respectively. Of the departures as well, Niall Evalds ended up leaving for Hull KR. Alex Sutcliffe then ended up joining Doncaster. Barreto for Rimo's next destination yet to be determined, as is Bailey Dawson's. Daniel Smith left for the Bradford Bulls. Gareth Widdop ended up retiring and then unretiring to join the Halifax Panthers. Yeah, real stab back there, Gareth. Greg Eden joining him out that way. Jacob Hookham also on the departure sheet. Jordan Turner to be captain coach of Oldham. Kenny Edwards leaving to join the Mackay Cutters in the Queensland Cup. You'll probably hear a lot about the Cutters pop up here and there. That's just check out X or Twitter feed just to explain why. Kieran Hudson to the Leeds Rhinos. Lakea Murphy, yet to be confirmed where he's going. Mahe Fanua also ended up at the Cutters via the way of Doncaster in their promotion to the Championship. Nathan Massey also out the door. I think his final destination has been confirmed. And Siwa Matangi also out the door as well.
Nathan Massey's going to Featherstone, FYI.
Yep, there we go. Featherstone Rovers, there you go. So, On top of that, though, they also brought in a fair few New South Wales Cup and Queensland Cup talent as well, which under the new visa rules, now that means they can target a lot more reserve grade players here in Australia for spots in the Betfred Super League. That won't count to the overseas quota rulings.
Okay.
I believe I
Very
did read
interesting
that. I will
indeed.
look to confirm that later on in the program. But amongst the list of the signings that are coming in, Luke Hooley will end up joining from the Leeds Rhinos, so they do get one back. In a senior joining from the Huddersfield Giants. Of course, we also mentioned the mid-season signing of Charbel Tassapale from the Newtown Jets midway through 2023. Joining him, Eli El-Zakim from the North Sydney Bears as well. Josh Hodgson, not Hodgson. He's not coming out of retirement. Be too much of a pain for his neck. Joining from the Batley Bulldogs, Josh Sim from the Wynnum Manly Seagulls, Liam Horn from the North Devils midway through the year. Then the additions of Nixon Putt from the Central Queensland Capras, Rowan Milnes and Sam Wood from Hull KR, Semi Kabula from the Batley Bulldogs, as well as Sylvester Namo from the North Queensland Cowboys.
Yep. So a big clean out, and then they've pretty much put the same amount of players back in.
It'll definitely be interesting to look at it because they have gone for a lot of PNG talent, particularly with Horn, Putt, and Namo in the pack, and there's currently visa concerns about trying to get into France at the moment. So Castleford might really want to have a look at what's going to happen here.
Yeah, but we'll have to play that one by ear, obviously.
But it'll be definitely one to keep an eye on, nevertheless. Now, first
well,
five
put it this, sorry, just quickly, that squad, though, for Castleford, it's going to, compared to what we saw, well, even what you said, the start of 17 from the start of 2023 to the end of 2023 was different. But it's going to be completely different again at the start of 2024. So whether or not they stick with this mostly the same 17 for 2020, the majority of 2024 will be wait to see. But fingers crossed, if they have some consistency in the squad and spine and coaching, then that might prove the results. But in a way, I think they're going through a rebuild stage.
Well, with a new head coach in Craig Lingard, of course, the boss of the under-resourced Batley Bulldogs that have punched well beyond their weight in the Betfred Championship as of late, but he's now making the step up to Super League at this point. This will be the challenge that confronts him for the first 5 rounds of the 2024 season. They will be at home, but they will unfortunately be at home to the reigning champions in the Wigan Warriors. Then it's an away trip to the Salford Red Devils, followed up by the Warrington Wolves under new head coach Sam Burgess. They don't get a home game until they're back facing the Huddersfield Giants at the Jungle before having to travel to the south of France.
So pretty tough to start off with, especially in your first game against the reigning champions in Wigan. A bit of a tough luck there.
I have a lot of concerns for the Castleford Tigers. I love their success story in 2017, and it's just Castleford was sort of one of those sides you really wanted to do well, despite being of that real tight West Yorkshire quartet or so that have really clung on in the last couple of years, especially when you look at the dominance of some of the bigger Cheshire and Manchester clubs, as well as the fact you have the Catalan Dragons who have become something of a recent juggernaut.
Yeah.
But realistically,
100%.
This is a very dangerous scenario for the Black and Amber because I'm looking at this and I think at best it's a 1-4 start to the season. At worst, it's 0-5.
Who do you reckon they're going to win against, though?
I think the only winning opportunity they have is against Salford.
Oh, gee, thanks.
Look, I mean, that's my honest opinion. I mean, we're going to crush them.
Yeah, I know.
Warrington should beat them, especially with, even though they've got a new coach as well, that squad is practically intact, ready to go. Huddersfield have really, and we'll get on to Huddersfield, but Huddersfield should get the win, and Catalan at home is always a tough challenge.
That is true.
And it hasn't helped that one of their new recruits in Rowan Milnes is out for the start of the season, as is Alex Meller. So one name that was already a lock in the forward pack, as well as another name that was just on the in sheet is out for some time. That's not the start Craig Lingard was hoping for.
No, it certainly wasn't.
It's going to be another long, difficult year for the Tigers. And they do have some bright points. I think Jack Broadbent is going to be someone who's going to be a very good player. Should he have left the Leeds Rhinos? Probably not when you look at hindsight, but that's really a topic for another day. Joe Westerman, of course. George Lawler, I think, very much proved his versatility, especially across the last season. Whether or not he backs it up, I hope he does. But when you look at this roster, nothing screams to me playoff worthiness.
No way in the world. No bloody way.
I look at this squad and I just feel like they had their window, but now it's really slammed shut and it could really come crashing down. Last year, they finished the 2023 season in 11th on differential alone to Wakefield Trinity, who did get relegated, and not to be unexpected.
Not to be surprised.
Ended up being the worst team practically. I mean, they went 0-14. That pretty much says all you really need to know. But on a similar winning record, they didn't get their first win till round 15, and their last win came in round 20, where they just got smashed to the bottom of the table by the end of the day. But yeah, I think despite how bad Castleford are at this point, I still think they're going to stay above the relegation zone.
Yeah, okay.
I honestly think that will be the case.
Yeah, fair enough. Look, as I say, Castleford are going through a kind of what you call, not what you call, I think that's what they go through, a rebuild, as just mentioned before. They've lost a fair bit of experience in their squad, and there's quite a new fresh faces, new to the Super League as well, like especially from the Queensland Cup and the NRL. But I personally think Castleford will get relegated at the end of this season.
So you're saying they're going to be finishing 12th, the Tigers?
Yeah. They were lucky not to last season, to be brutally honest with you. Well, so I think they're going to get relegated.
Well, here we go. First controversial call of the year. I say Castleford just stay up. The other says Castleford are done.
So yeah, my predictions are never right anyway. So, but anyway, go out hard and see what happens come the end of the season.
Well, we've got 27 rounds for that tournament to be recognised. Now, moving on, we have to really pick up the pace because we spent a lot of time getting back into the grind. The Catalan Dragons coming off another grand final appearance, their second grand final appearance in 3 years. Oh, how disappointing was it be to get to Old Trafford again, only not to score a try? Yeah,
but it was good to see him in the grand final in, as you said, second time in 3 years. So we always know from the regular season that they are a competitive side, and they did show that again in 2023. But Wigan would just a little bit too challenging for them. The grand final wasn't as close as what it was when Catalans last played against St Helens. But it's still in all a very, very solid season for Catalans, despite the end result in the grand final.
The most interesting part for me was that the Catalan Dragons, one of the big criticism was when they got bounced out of the playoffs by the Leeds Rhinos in 2022 is that they let their discipline slip out at the worst possible time. That shouldn't have happened that way, but it ended up the case being that they would be bounced out when they still had a relatively strong side. You look at the 2023 squad, their discipline, I think, received a massive improvement.
Oh, definitely. Most definitely, compared to the year before.
I mean, I'm not too certain about the penalty count at the moment, but it's like you managed to keep your head throughout over a large portion of the season. And you will more than often than not find yourself on the winning side of the equation. And sure, they gave away 230 No, wait, hang on. I was reading the wrong chart. That was for offloads. They only gave away 146 penalties. So they practically had top 6 discipline amongst all sides, especially though those above of them, only by a difference of a penalty. St. Helens in 6th for the most penalties given away. And that is an improvement on 181 penalties the year before that they gave away. So they managed to cut at least 30 penalties out of their game in 2023.
That's very solid, though. Like, that's no easy feat either. Like, cutting out 30 penalties from the year before, that could be because of that could lead. I suppose from multiple factors such as like experience and obviously more focused on what they're doing out in the field than what they were the year prior.
Another big part, I think, of the Catalan Dragons is not just that Tyrone May and Mitchell Pearce were a solid halves combination, which they were, but I think there was something else that you really had to look at, because this is sort of like, you looked at it, it was sort of the last year for a lot of things. Like, it was announced early on in the piece, I think around about May, it would be Sam Tompkins' final year in the in Super League. It'd be Mitchell Pearce's final year as well. And you looked at the side that Catalan fielded, and the power and the speed of the backs on top of a very reliable forward pack, you'd have to say, on the most part, and this breeding of French talent at that disposal, they absolutely blew past a whole host of sides in the 2023 season, and some good sides in and amongst that as well. I mean, they really got the better of the reigning champions on very key occasions when it came down to it.
Yeah, they certainly did. And, I mean, it was always going to be a good battle to watch, like, between St. Helens and Catalans, like, well, at the time, they were only a chance. And it just shows that Catalans are within a fight, like, year in, year out, despite what happens to them throughout the season from time to time.
I think the biggest piece of that puzzle was we saw the best of Tom Johnston as a player. Like, we saw him at Wakefield. He was practically England caliber player, but he had 2 back-to-back knee injuries that really ruled him out long term. So he moves to a new environment. He comes to the south of France, where they really did a job, and boy, did it show. In 26 appearances from Tom Johnston on the left flank, unseating Fuad Yaha as the first choice left winger. In 26 appearances, get ready, 27 tries, 1 try assist, 3,533 running meters, 127 tackle breaks, 17 line breaks, and 5 offloads.
Wow. Strike rate's pretty much 1 try per game.
Absolutely crazy. And this is a spine that had a rotating cast of Sam Tompkins, Arthur Morgue, Cesar Rouge, also Tyrone May, Mitchell Pearce, as I mentioned, Michael McAlorum. That was probably the biggest centerpiece of that spine as well, that you could practically trust throughout all of 2023. That never failed. And then, of course, you throw in Garcia, Talquiaho, Goudemont, Seguier. This quality pack of Frenchmen that have been assembled to really stick it to some of these more fancy sides with, your St. Helens, your Wiggins, and your Orringtons as well. And it just showed. It absolutely showed that the consistency between Tyrone May and Mitchell Pearce at the back end of the year really did good for the Catalan Dragons, especially to the point where they were, at one point, first on the table, looking like they were going to charge through to another league leader shield, only to get pipped in a couple of games that they could have won, but then other times where they were definitely outclassed.
Yeah. But they only lost the league leader shield on differential.
Yeah, I mean, they were up there with Wigan and St. Helens on 20 wins, 6 losses. That's how good Catalan were, that the differential dictated they finished second of 3 sides that had 20 wins each.
Yeah. I mean, you can't get any tighter than that, though, like, seriously.
No, you absolutely cannot. And, of course, always good for Catalan to feature in their second grand final as well. And you would have thought, and we were sort of hoping as well, But the Catalan Dragons did actually break through for their first grand final win. Unfortunately, discipline went at the worst time possible, and Wigan's defence was just too good on the night.
True. But saying that too, with Catalans, with the run that they've had, like, if you win 20 games from 7 losses, and that they've well, on the year prior in 2022, they kind of kept most of the same squad heading into 2023, which I think is what helped them as well carry on into the next, like into 2023. And I think the same again is happening again into 2024, minus a few more key players. Well, not key players, but kind of big name players.
Now, you had key players
Like
right in particular, because looking at the roster rotation at the moment, of course, the two big ones, Mitchell Pearce and Sam Tompkins, both retired after that grand final loss. And of course, Sam Tompkins in recent times has now joined the Sky Sports team. He will be anchoring the coverage alongside, I think, Kyle Amor and David Wood from the BBC have also gotten promoted to Sky Sports in their team. So
I don't know. I haven't seen anything about that. So.
It's definitely a changing of the guard, to be sure of. Or Adam Kieran, very good season with the Dragons, floating between the halves and the centres. He's left to join the Wigan Warriors. Matt Whitley left to St Helens, with Mikhail Gudamon going the way of the Leeds Rhinos. Tiaki Chan also heading the way of the Champions, whilst Tyrone May has left for Hull KR. So they're best fullback possible, and both their starting halves from the grand final are both gone, which is a big loss.
Yep.
Sio Siwa Taukiaho would have been included on this list going to the Canterbury Bulldogs, but failed medical, fell through, and he has since been included in Catalans' 2024 squad, so he will see out the full 3 years. I believe he signed back in 2022, so he will continue out his contract at this point in time.
Unless that happens, because pretty much contracts don't mean much nowadays anyway here across both sides of the world.
But I think it's important from the standpoint of Catalan's forward pack that they at least keep one senior player in that pack that can really build on. And I got to say, Catalan have really done a good job of replacing the halves they lost and really beefing up the forward pack as well. Because first and foremost, coming in, Tarek Sims from the Melbourne Storm, so he'll have a fresh start after
getting minimal game time.
Useful season at Melbourne, but definitely moving on to another league to get more game time. Chris Sate coming in from Hull FC, that will really beef up the forward pack up front. Jaden Nikarima joining from the Melbourne Storm as well, Theo. But this is where it really gets interesting. First, they nail Theo Farge from the Huddersfield Giants, and probably the biggest coup of them all, they get Jordan Abdul from Hull KR on a full season loan with no option for recall.
No option. Wow, that's a very
big coup that they absolutely needed, because we know how good Jordan Abdul has shown himself to be, and he has played for England before. So getting him on top of Theo Farge, if they can sort out their fitness and their injury concerns the way they did to Tom Johnston, I think Catalan have really changed the complexion of this 2024 season as it currently stands. With their first 5 games coming up will definitely be ones to keep an eye on. They will be at home to start off with, up against the Warrington Wolves. Then they will be travelling on the road for the next 2 weeks. First to the south of England, to the Cherry Red Record Stadium to take on the newly promoted London Broncos, before travelling in round 3 to AMT Headingley Stadium for the Leeds Rhinos, before 2 home games again against Hull FC and the Castlewood Tigers.
So they're pretty solid, consistency to start the year, I think, in terms of home matches and away matches. So they're only away, twice in the first 6 weeks or 5 weeks?
It's an even split over the first month and a half. They've got 3 games on the road, 3 games at home. I think it's a very good start to the year. Warrington and Leeds will definitely be interesting challenges, to say the least, but the other 3 should see the Dragons off to a good start, 3-2 in my Best case scenario, it could be 2-3 at the worst. Honestly, 2-3 at the worst for me.
Yeah, I'll probably go with you on the first option. We're saying 3 wins, 2 losses to start off the year. I mean, there could be like really good matchups such as against Warrington there, but you never know what's going to happen.
And I think the other benefit as well is they don't have to play St. Helens in the back 9 rounds. They only have to play Wigan once in the back 9, so they got a good run home as well. So if you wanted a late season surge out of Steve McNamara's men, who has done a fantastic job with this Catalan Dragon side, I definitely think you would see Catalan charging home, regardless of what happens with the 2 Hulls, Salford and London in between.
Well, the 2 things that really help Catalan, 2 players and the consistency of them carry the squad carrying across them as of 2023. But the 2 key signings is like Theo Farge and Jordan Abdul, like especially Abdul as well, with having no recall in his contract. If Hull KR need him, that you don't hear very often. But those, Tarek Sims is a very handy pickup too, with experience. Yeah,
it's definitely a good deal for Catalan, and they have actually done a very good job of finding good replacement halves. Combination, sure, won't be there, but they've got some very good class halves in the wings ready to go. I think it's going to be another good season out of the Catalan Dragons. I don't see them dropping. Well, when I say drop, I don't think they'll have enough to get back into the top 2 like they did. I think there's some very good sides in this league coming up, but I definitely think they will have another good year with another good home final in the wings for them. Headlines at the moment surrounding both Tom Johnston and Tom Davies, so the TNT wing combination is under threat at the moment from those wanting to bring the TNT back to England, essentially.
I mean, we have to wait and see, but if the threat there, well, they had to, try and work harder to stay on as the TNT combination on the win. Like you said, with England, get back into it.
I mean, TNT is practically the Catalan Dragons' bread and butter attack on both sides of the ball. The centres up in the air. It could be Arturo Romano, Mathieu De Guerre, alongside Matic Abalu, but TNT are the locks on either side of the flanks. And Archil Morg, I think we'll finally get to see more consistency out of Archil Morg now that he can be starting a lot more and not stuck behind Pearce or, Sam Tompkins, I should say, at the fullback position. So you're looking at a spine of Morg, Farge, Abdul, McAlorum. I think that's going to be a top 4 spine to really shake up the competition. Whether or not I think they can return to the grand final, I think that's still a little bit up in the air, to be honest. I haven't really settled on my grand final predictions just yet, but this is what I've got at the moment. Last year, the Catalan Dragons finished second of 3 teams on 20-6 and made it all the way to the grand final, but lost. I think there will be another good year out of them. I think they'll end up finishing 4th and lock in another home elimination final.
Ooh. So you reckon they're going to drop down a couple places? Well, instead of a couple, I'm going to say they're going to drop down into 3rd after finishing 2nd last year, as you just mentioned. They will definitely be in a playoffs, obviously. But again, I don't know if they can quite make the grand final for a 2nd straight year and the 3rd time in 4 years. But there's a quality opposition that they more than likely will be up against in Wigan St. Helens.
Well, regardless of whether we say Catalan finished 3rd or 4th, we both agree they will get a home elimination final for the 2024 season. Now, moving right along, we have the Huddersfield Giants. A lot of disappointment out of the Giants heading into 2023 after a good 2022 season, you'd have to say.
Well, yeah. I mean, in 2022, they were the quiet achievers. Let's put it that way. And I thought they were definitely going to carry that on into 2023, but they clearly didn't, which is disappointing to see because they had the potential on paper.
But yes, I think it was also because of what they had on paper that really backfired in their face. I think this was something I addressed last year as well, that they had too many playmakers all trying to play around the ball at once. And unfortunately, it really showed that the inconsistencies in Ian Watson's spine across the 2023 season really hurt the Huddersfield Giants. They should have really been much clearer on who they wanted to start and who they wanted to bring on as utility, because it just didn't work out. I mean, barring the fact that Jake Connor didn't play the first 4 rounds of the regular season, and then when he did come in, and Huddersfield's spine was just all over the place, and it showed on the field as well. Games that we thought they could have won easily ended up being total disasters.
Well, I honestly thought that when Jake Connor come back, he would have steadied the ship and made Huddersfield way more consistent than not way more consistent, but make them consistent throughout, for the remainder of the season. But
it was my line
again,
of
they said
that Watson would make Connor consistent, and then he would make Huddersfield a superstar. So that was my line of thinking, that if Ian Watson could get the best out of Jake Connor's discipline, then the Giants would fly. But that just didn't happen, because you had a rotating door, not just of Jake Connor, but of Will Price, Tui Lolohea, Theo Fage, and Ollie Russell. You had 5 trying to fit into 3, and it just didn't work out at all. And I mean, you look at some of these results here. 6-point loss to Hull FC. Then they get blown off the park 28-0 against Hull KR. Then the Leopards win 30-4. And this is all league games. Magic Weekend. And 48-6 loss to St Helens. 54-0 loss to the Leeds Rhinos in round 16. And at the back end of the year, it gets a little bit better, but there's still Salford blown off the park. 32 points today. They lose to the champions again. But some of those earlier results, if you look early on, especially when they had that only 1 win in 9 games, barring the Challenge Cup up tie as well, that's what really killed their season. It really did, and it was very disappointing as well, because we wanted to see Connor do well, but in the end, he only really came up with 2 tries and a couple of try assists, I believe. He didn't really have that much involvement in the Huddersfield Giants, but someone who did have that level of involvement for the Claret and Gold, I think, in a struggling season, as they really didn't know who was in the spine, I think it was Tuilola here, once again, that was among Huddersfield's best, I should say. In 26 appearances, he scored 16 tries, he set up another 19 on his own, 2,504 running meters, 98 tackle breaks, 9 line breaks, 16 offloads, and 2 from 2 goals converted.
And only they're 2 from 2.
Yeah, because I think they had a rotating door on that at front as well. I think Connor and Price were sort of tag teaming on the goal kicking in front as well. It just didn't really work out. I mean, Connor 35 goals on his own. Ollie Russell 40 goals he kicked. Will Price 6 goals as well. So it was really between Connor and Russell for those kicking goals across the entire 2023 season, rather than just one consistent.
I was going to say, that's another thing that probably cost them too, like the inconsistent of goals. I mean, yeah, if you can't help injuries and you can somewhat help suspensions, you just don't get suspended. That's easier said than done as well. But I think that also cost them as well. But yes, Laurel here, he was probably agreed to stand out for Huddersfield.
Now, the Giants have also gone on a bit of they've sort of been a retirement home, I'm going to be quite honest, with this roster rotation at the moment. The retiring class from them, Chris McQueen, Josh Jones, Nathan Mason, and Nathan Peets all ended up retiring, playing their final games there. Adam O'Brien leaves to join the Halifax Panthers, George Roby to the Swinton Lions, Innes Senior to the Casper Tigers, Jack Ashworth to Hull FC, Jermaine McGilvery drops down to Wakefield Trinity in the Championship. Owen Trout to the Leeds Leopards, of course, as we just touched on, Barsh the Catalan. And Will Price joining the Newcastle Knights.
As well as Adam McGowan on to a season-long loan to Bradford.
Yes, the Bulls practically needing anyone at this point to try and stay relevant in the promotion conversation, but the IMG debate could snuff out any hopes of a return to Super League.
But you look on their signings that they've signed as well, though. You got coming in from the Sydney Roosters, Thomas Deacon. I think this one is probably not a bad signing here. From it'll be Hollis C, Adam Swift, and then Andre Savelio as well. They're, I think, pretty key signings. Elliot Wallace from Castleford, Hugo Salabio from Wakefield, Jack Murchie coming over to England from Parramatta, and also Adam Clune heading over to England from the Newcastle Knights after getting minimal games time there.
So you presume that Milner also joining from the Castleford Tigers midway through the season and on to something a little bit more long-term for him moving forward as well. I think they've done the right thing with Huddersfield. I mean, sure, they've probably lost a generation player in Will Price, but I think they've also simplified the spine as well with Theo Fage leaving. So now I think he can go into his third season with a lot more clarity of how his spine will be assembled. I think he could easily say a spine of Connor, Lolohea, Clune, and Deacon / Adam Milner if you think he's good enough to start in this stage of the game.
Yeah. I was going to say Adam Clune had to be in there somewhere. He's got the potential from what we've seen over here, but Adam Swift, you'd have him in the starting start and on the same with Savelio easily, surely.
No, you would have Adam Swift definitely starts in that back five. I mean, you'd have him with Jake Bibby, Kevin Nagama. I think Leroy Kudjoe would still get a good start in there, though it would be indeswapable with Isan Masters. I would definitely have to admit it on that front as well. Now, the Giants, they have a bit more of an interesting turn of events because of the Betfred World Club Challenge. So, this is what it will actually look like for them. At this point, round one, they will be travelling to take on the Leeds Leopards at the Leeds Sports Village. Then they will have their first home game against St Helens. They would be travelling to face Wigan at the DW Stadium, but that game supposedly getting postponed because of the World Club Challenge. And I think that might be the case.
What St Helens was last year, yep.
Yeah, I think that would definitely be the case. Then round four, or to the Jungle to take on Castleford before hosting Hull KR at home. And then in round six, they will be travelling to face the London Broncos in the nation's capital.
Ooh. So it's not a tough draw, but it's not an easy draw. But it depends if that Wigan game is postponed or not, which
it will have
more
to
than likely it will.
Rearranged.
Yeah.
Unless the dates, because I think in Wigan's case, they would have to postpone one of their fixtures in particular, and I think it is that game against Huddersfield, or it could be their round two game against the... Oh, no, sorry. All right, I retract that. It's actually Wigan's round two game against the Leeds Leopards that is the postponed game because it falls on the 24th. So Huddersfield will actually face Wigan at the DW Stadium.
There we go.
But yeah, it's with Lee, St Helens, Wigan, Castleford, Hull KR. That it's an okay start, but I think with the top two, with two of the top three sides from last year, as well as the real surprise packet of the Leeds Leopards, you could either look at this as a 2-3 start, or you could look at it in the best case scenario, a 3-2 start.
Just to really see how they go in the first couple of weeks, and that will kind of determine how they'll go. But having, like we said, a couple on the top four, top four in the first couple of weeks is going to be a bit tough. but let's see how they roll, especially now with a more consistent, well, not consistent, a more stable spine heading into the start of the year compared to last year.
I think you will see improvement out of the Huddersfield Giants in 2024. Of course, some good strike players are gone. Chris McQueen was a massive strike player for the Giants in his stint with them, so he's a massive loss. That will have to be compensated by someone else. They need to settle on who their actual back five is going to be. I think more than likely Isan Mas is the man to miss out for another year in particular. Hooker depth will also be a concern. I think you would really only have Deacon and Milner fighting for the first spots, and then the versatility of Ollie Russell off the bench as well. I don't think Huddersfield will have that much dramatic improvement. I think they're missing something at the moment. I think they just need one good year of cohesion, and then I think they're ready to challenge back for a top 6 spot. I think this is just a recalibration year they need to get through. If they make the playoffs, it's a good bonus. It always is, but I think there are still a host of sides ahead of them on the Super League table at the moment, in my eyes.
Oh, yeah. Definitely not a top 8 side compared to where they could have been in 2022.
Last year, the Giants finished 9th on the table after a bad year with the spine. I think there's slight improvement, so I will say the Giants finished 8th on the table, 2 places outside the top 6.
You know what? I have to agree with you on that one. There will be an improvement, but not that much. But I'm going to say, too, the spot for 6 will be very, very tight, and Huddersfield in 8 will be one of those teams that will just miss out in a tight mid-table battle.
One of the rare moments we actually agree on something with this. Just now moving right along, we have one side of East Hull in the black and whites of FC. Oh boy. Another year, another result of Hull finishing lowly on the Super League table.
Yep. And again,
really
you know what it just comes down? No. I mean, I think ever since they've done the podcast, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they're kind of slowly starting to go down since they started the podcast. I could be wrong, though. Or not really pushing for the top 8 or the top 6 for the playoffs.
You're not wrong. Since we started, and this is our 4th season now, we started at the back after the 2020 season was done, and they just made it through to the semi-finals, and since then they have done nothing. And
no.
Look, 2 and 8, no, 3 and 7 is what killed their season. The first 10 rounds absolutely set them back big time. You look at the results in that first 2.5 month window, it absolutely ruined their season. And then again with the 6-game losing run at the back end as well. Those 2 periods is what really ended Hull FC. Despite yet another good, semi-good Challenge Cup campaign. I mean, they won the first 2 games and looked like world beaters, and then they went to Catalan and scored 1.
Where they got destroyed.
Then they hosted Salford, and they had 60 put on them. Then a couple of weeks later, they went down in the space of 2 weeks, heading into Good Friday. The final score between Warrington and the Robins ended up being a combined 74-6, including that dropping on Good Friday.
Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous as a combined result.
One of the bright spots, though, you could say, they actually did beat the soon-to-be crowned champions Wigan 14-10. Somehow. I don't know how that happens.
I was going to say, that wasn't a full-strength Wigan side, wasn't it?
Well, this shows
what might have been.
Well, it is at this point. It was, in fact, relatively the best side the Wigan Warriors could put on the park, although no Jai Field. But they still had a doggedly strong side, practically.
Yeah, well then, somehow Hull managed to beat Wigan then with a fairly They're all but full strength side. Hmm. Might have been the lucky day, eh?
Yeah, I just think they got lucky. They did beat the reigning champions, majorly dominated the reigning champions at home as well, and this was just after their Challenge Cup quarter-final loss to St Helens, where again it was very much a full-strength Saints side that got steamrolled by the Black and Whites.
Which again, no one saw coming.
No, they have these bright spots, Hull FC, where they do look good for a period, but that's a problem. It's for a period, and then they're gone. Like, a good middle third of the year, where they made it through to the Challenge Cup quarterfinals. They had most of their wins fall in this period from round 10 to 18, and then at the back third of the year, they only get 2 wins and 7 losses. That just kills you. It absolutely kills you like that.
Well, as your table shows, they only had 10 wins and 17 losses. And they were only only win behind Huddersfield. But they were well and truly clear of Carlton 11. So that wasn't a worry for them.
Both the Tigers and Wakefield on this front, but it was still a poor showing from a Yorkshire side. Now, the best in the black and white, it was Jake Clifford playing in the halves. As believe it or not, I think a good year away, some Cowboys fans will argue, will definitely benefit him moving forward. In 25 appearances for the black and white, he scored 6 tries of his own, had 19 try assists, 1,695 running meters, 65 tackle breaks, 12 line breaks, 9 offloads, 1 40-20, and he was 54 from 75 goals converted. And, you had all these expectations, him and Jake Truman to, lead Hull to the promised land and back to Wembley, lead them to Old Trafford to finally break through for a Super League title. Yeah, well, that's actually...
And that didn't happen. Well, no. It certainly didn't.
Well, it won't, because...
Jake Clifford...
He will leave to join the North Queensland Cowboys. He's already left on the first line of the roster rotation. Chris Sate leaving to join the Catalan Dragons. We just touched on, of course, Swift and Savelio to the Huddersfield Giants. Josh Griffin, longtime servant, left to join Wakefield Trinity midway through the 2023 season, though why would you? Jamie Shaw and Scott Taylor both retiring after that season. Ben McNamara joining the Leigh Leopards, Brad Dwyer to the Warrington Wolves, and Connor Wynn to the Featherstone Lovers, with Joe Lavadua, I believe, also linking up with Doncaster as of late, and Jude Ferreira not renewed with his contract.
Well, Jude Ferreira is going to Hunslet, whatever league they're in.
League One.
Yeah. And Manoa, what am I trying to pronounce it? Manoa Wakoki, I think. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. He's off the Featherstone. On the
Coca, that would probably be the closest I could do to it.
Yeah. Now, you're better at pronouncing some of these than me, so.
Well, even the first time's not the best, but that's sort of like how I would probably think that it would be sounded out, and, that's usually how it goes. Now, on the other side of the equation, they have sorted out their spine to an extent. They have brought in Jack Walker back from Hull KR, so he's moving back over to the other side. The forward pack seen some big boosts. Franklin Pele from the Canterbury Bulldogs and Herman Essie from the Dolphins. On top of Jaden Ockenbaugh, also Bulldog signature with Jack Ashworth, who we touched on from the Huddersfield Giants. Liam Tyndall from the Leeds Rhinos to shore up the flanks. Morgan Smith from Wakefield Trinity. Damal Diakate from Albi in the French Elite Championship at the top flight of French Rugby League. He also joining as well with New Brown from the Newcastle Knights.
Yep. So they kind of bolstered up their pack a little bit more.
That's the one thing you can always look at Hull FC and say they always assemble the biggest packs imaginable. It's just they don't have the spine to really guide them through it. And interesting though, Darling Houghton has actually won back the Hull FC captaincy.
Yeah, right.
Tony Smith has seen it fit that Carlos Chumavave has not worked out, and he has given back the former whole talisman, his armband after. So it's still there. He's still going strong, Dannyhausen. So, oh well, good on him, earning back the captaincy.
Till Navarro, he was kind of in and out a bit too last season, which kind of really, if I remember correctly.
Well, of the 18 times the Rugby League project actually has the captains listed, Chumavave ended up being the captain 10 times, Josh Griffin 7, and Jake Clifford ended up being captain once. And if we actually look at by the first appearance, Carlos Chumavave didn't even feature in the side for the Black and Whites until it was round 6.
Yeah.
And then he practically featured in all but 6 games from round 6 onwards. So he played a large part of the year, but was definitely had periods where he was missing.
Well, you can't, I mean, that's enough time to show how you are as a captain, but also not at the same time, if you understand what I'm saying, though. It's kind of, in a way, unfair that he's lost his captaincy, but then again, he did have enough time to show what he's capable of, and clearly, as I said, didn't work out, so he's handed it back over.
Well, interesting way, the Betfred Super League has decided that Hull will, in fact, open this year's season in particular by hosting the first game against the old rivals in Hull KR. Then they will travel across to Cheshire to take on the Warrington Wolves in the Halliwell Jones before hosting the London Broncos at home. And then on the road to the Catalan Dragons before once again rocking up back at home to take on the Lee Leopards.
So, what, 50-50 start the season, as home and away, or one more home game than an away game?
The balance of home games to away is 60-40, so they'll have 3 home games to 2 trips on the road, but this is not looking good for them. This is a punishing start to the year. You've got Hull KR looking to really try and build on yet another semi-final exit. You've got Warrington, Catalan, perennial playoff contenders, if you can call Warrington consistent. And then you've got the Leopards as well. It's a
who had a very, very solid 2023.
The rule of thumb, and this is not just a beat up on London, but the usual rule of thumb is you're almost guaranteed a win against the London Broncos unless, like the Leopards, they show up to play.
True.
So really, they're staring down the barrel. Best case scenario, they can go 1-4 with a win over London. At worst, they could go 0-5.
0-5. Yeah.
If in that absolute case, London actually gets a win on the road.
So what round? That round what?
That's round 3.
Oh, round 3. I mean, we'll touch on London soon, but being from a part-time side to a full-time side, it's going to take a little while to adapt, I reckon.
It's a tough start. Based on what they've got, other squad numbers, interesting. They gave New Brown the number 7 jumper.
Would he be playing dummy half? Would he not?
Well, I think Danny Houghton would be starting dummy half, but I think the idea is, and I'm looking at this just on the balance of the squad, never mind the numbers, because the squad number is just the number you're given. It doesn't necessarily mean you are the absolute first choice. My idea of what Hull's ideal spine is, you'd have Jack Walker at fullback, Tex Hoy moves into the halves at standoff, and then you have Jake Truman at scrum half, Houghton at hooker. But what I think the most likely plan Tony Smith will have this year, Hoy at fullback, Truman Brown the halves, Houghton dummy half, and then Walker comes in when he's needed.
Like a utility in the way.
I'm not buying it. I really don't know what to really think about that. And look, they've beefed up the forward pack. They've done so again. I mean, you're looking at Big Herman, Danny Houghton, Liggy Sow, Jordan Lane, Joe K, Ater, Jay Knockenball starting pack. Effectively, that's improved the starting lineup up in the forwards dramatically. Jack Ashworth off the bench as well.
Frank
I'm
Kelly
really
off
not
the bench, surely.
I'm just not seeing much positives out of this Hull C side at the moment. I can't put my finger on what they really need to push past better opponents.
I'm not going to sound like a bit of a record, but bloody consistency. I mean, well, I think every team will be consistency, but especially ones that didn't make the playoffs.
It's what they need.
And
I can't figure out what they could possibly need. Because, like good pack, they've recruited rather well in the spine, but I just don't see how they put it all together. I really don't.
we'll have to
And
wait.
even with that big pack, it could backfire on them by packs who are more aggressive and more mobile. I mean, SESE has been a bench forward at best. That's Sprout's entire career. He hasn't really earned his stripes as a starting forward. Franklin Pele looked like a monster wrecking ball the Bulldogs inherited, but then injuries kept him sidelined for most of the year. Jaden
Ockenball is gone from like a back five into the pack.
His hands are suspect, and even as a Bulldogs fan, I do have to admit he was suspect with his hands as a winger, and as a forward. Does he really strike fear into you as an edge forward? Like, he proved himself versatile, but that's all he's got really. He doesn't have anything else really to work with.
Well, in the forwards, he has. I mean, he's a tall bloke, like perfect for the back line. But size-wise for the forwards, he hasn't really got that on him either. So, yeah, I agree with what you said there.
Honestly, we're looking at... I just think this is a meh side. It's just meh. It's like, it's LSE, it's meh. There's really nothing going for them at the moment. I don't know what it is. And look, I've been following Super League for 7 years now. And doing this podcast before, when possible, when I'm not working full time. And I just don't see any real difference in Hull that could justify a move up away from relegation and into playoffs contention. It's like they try to pack their bags to go towards Wembley, and then they end up just going to Blackpool at the end of it all. Last year, the Black and Whites finished 10th on the ladder. I just think they'll stay where they are. They can't get any worse. I don't know how they're going to get better, to be honest. So there's really nothing to it.
So you reckon they're staying in 10th, eh?
Yes. Hull FC stay where they are.
Yeah, I kind of see that happening as well. But I think it'll be a close battle to see how close they are to 11th. But I'm very, very 50-50 of putting them in 10th or 11th. But I'm only going to put them in 10th, but just in 10th.
Yeah, it's very hard to look at Hull and say there's any real positives that they can take forward at the moment. Could prove me wrong, but this is really Tony Smith's last chance. Otherwise, he's out the door.
What, mid-season or end of season?
You could be gone in the middle of this season, really. If there's no real improvement in Hull, he's gone.
Yeah.
And on that sour note, that wraps it up for part one. If you like this part, it's a little bit long. We probably rambled a little bit, but we still got our point across. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the second part. We'll have the links to all our team predictions up on Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter/X. And don't forget, #SideChatYT. We'll be back next time for this part two as we cover the other side of Hull, the IMG surprise package that is really causing some interesting conversations to be had. And are the Leeds Rhinos back? Find out after this.